It is Thursday. Woo! It's currently Thursday, and the energy right now, the mental clarity that I am feeling is beyond explainable words. It is incomprehensible. As in. No, I'm just joking. Okay, so I'm not recording this in the 25th of Ramadan. This is actually the fifth day after Eid. And hello there. I am going to speak of child and family assessment. This video is going to be very long. Buckle up. We are going to delve deep into the science of these, well, information that everybody knows. What is he even speaking of? I mean, this guy is just shouting. So, family. Before I pull an XX intention, what's a father? No. So, a father or a caregiver is simply a person that took on the responsibility of taking care of the child or the child. What is a child? A child, it is this term that is used for children between the age of, guess what, 0 to 12. Back to the XXX example. What is a family? A family is basically a group of people united together, either through blood, through, let's say, work, through adoption, well, mainly through actual blood marriage and adoption. The other definition that you'd want to use, right, when describing, I guess, the coworker being like a brother to you, or a friend being like a close sibling, or let's say a teacher being like a father figure to you. This is what sociologists explain as the functions and relations to society. As in, they tend to consider family in terms of, like I said, functions as a whole rather than to the individuals within it. Another thing that happened at the same time is greater social mobility from industrial revolutions. The 20th century, of where wars have struck the world with killings, with nuclear bombs, created the new term nuclear family. Nuclear family is where two married individuals get two kids, or kids, I guess, just one, whatever, the count that they want, and they simply raise them with no uncles, with no one else to, I guess, live with them. The extended family, on the other hand, the extended family is what us Muslims very see as important. We highlighted actually in our book also. Extended families being the ones that you live with, I guess, uncles, aunts, your uncle's uncle, your grandfather's uncle. I mean, what? Also, these sound great. They really do. But of course, with greater power comes greater responsibility, and that came in the image of the ascent, the uprise, the very sharp increase of divorce rates. Changing sex roles are one of the causes of. Well, people simply get more, or I guess more diverse values and beliefs, which makes them want to act out in different ways, which makes them, guess what, lonely in their very, what was supposed to be a very social path. What am I talking about? I'm talking also about greater longevity. We have we have increased the lifespan of a human. This is something that's just known by every person, literally. Medicine and technology have replaced the evolution part of what animals should actually be going through. Of course, this is just a metaphor to get you to understand, right? One of the consequences of course, single parents, very lonely households, well, increased delinquency. I mean, lots of bad stuff do happen from divorced households. I mean, I think most people would agree with this. And when I say most people wouldn't agree, well, I'm talking about the same music artist, this XX Testashing guy. Why do I keep stuttering when I say his name? He turned his childhood into a form of art. Why are we even mentioning it again? There's something called the child's framework for the outside world. We have three pillars. We have child's developmental needs. I will put an image right now so we don't actually get lost. Child's developmental needs, as in the things that he needs to develop, stuff like social skills like social representation, self-care, mainly. It's very important, that one. Parenting capacity. Parenting capacity, this says literally enduring safety. This is emotional warmth. This is basic care. It could be also, but it also could be the parent's ability to go through the BS that the child is putting them through. God knows I've done that most. Family and environmental factors, lastly, the third one. This just says that the bigger the environmental factors, the wider, rather, the better the child's developmental onslaught. But of course, even with the family's environment being wide, like we said, housing, like we said, material stuff, we get even more problems. As in, we need to actually assess it correctly. We need to collect as instruction information from multiple sources. We need to formulate them in a way that they're actually understood. Mainly why? To avoid problems and mistakes with the children. Like, for example, them reporting the timing and duration of their problems. Them sometimes not speaking of them at all because they think it's some sort of, I guess, embarrassing topic to speak of. That they will be judged and punished profusely. Not only that, but of course, contacting the other multidisciplinary departments just to get a better understanding of what the child is actually dealing with. We often see this in psychiatry and psychology. After all, the actual goal of the entire setting itself is just to formulate, it's to guide management decisions, is to reach a good conclusion and case formulation to the patient so that we can actually, well, save his life. This is just the basics of the objective of clinical assessment. They are what often people would call out to be axiomatic. Axiomatic means it's just not questioned. It's like it's so known that it shouldn't be questioned. Things like you should be trying to identify symptoms and signs of a specific mental health disorder. You want to know the origins of the disorder, You want to put the child in specific, unique social situations as to just like, you're kind of like studying him to figure out more about I guess, the intervention parts that would be later on implemented. All of these things that I just mentioned are basically a collaborative relationship between the practitioner or therapist and the patient himself. This falls under the definition therapeutic alliance. We work together to achieve one goal. That is me making more money. No. Also, one of the things that you will also call out axiomatic is the confidentiality of the therapeutic alliance. Tell me, what is it that you are dealing with? Trust me, I'm not going to tell anyone. Well, of course, until I actually have to do when you do threaten the law or you threaten, I guess, someone's life. Not threaten the law. I mean, you could be a drug addict and I wouldn't turn you into the police. Like I said, it's axiomatic. Confidentiality just means protecting personal information. This is why I said it's axiomatic. All these very confidentiality rules, the child himself must know. A very big misconception in therapeutic alliance is that speaking to the parents only is enough. Respecting the child's autonomy is priority, I think. He is a patient, right? You're still treating him as a normal patient. Of course, what do you tell normal patients? That confidentiality is our number one rule, but guess what? If I, for some reason, take the idea of you, that you're going to kill someone, that you're going to do something very, very bad, a systemic intervention must be implemented on you. Meaning that, well, people will know. Not only that, but the waiting area itself for the kid might actually irritate him and make him, I guess, anxious. Like in the butchery houses of cattle, we must not show them the blades and the cutting edge technology that we're going to use on them later. I mean, it's very easy for anyone, anything, any creature to connect these two together, that they are going to be slaughtered for food, right? I would actually put out the same example here. If you show the child early on that the environment that he's going to go on to later is very serious, he might get scared. So what do we even do? We paint the walls with, I guess, colors. We put out toys all around. We just make the environment as familiar as possible to the child, again, for the millionth time, to not get intimidated. Also, one of the challenges that do come along or accompany the presence of a child in a clinic is the silent child. You must actually try to understand why exactly he is silent. I mean, even sometimes taking more time of, I guess, establishing a report or consultation time to figure that out. That's very important. What's even more important that my very intelligent college classmates have failed to realize is that, hey, why are we studying physiology? Why are we studying anatomy? Why are we studying these things? I'm a psychologist, bro. This is all I need. What am I doing? I'm having way too much fun today. So you need to actually also understand if it might be a physiological need, if the child simply hasn't gotten enough sleep. I mean, how foolish can you be to miss that? You can literally see eye bags on him. I mean, it's literally a generalized symptom. It's crazy. Developmental deficits, also, one of these stuff that physiology will make you understand. But okay, out of my rant again, one of these stuff that we want to deal with is anxiety and anger. More on anxiety. It is the common reason for a child's silence. Like I had said earlier, it might simply be because the waiting area was scary, but it also might be other very, very evil and scary factors like the history of trauma or abuse, mood and anxiety disorders, the authoritarian parenting style that might actually affect how they, well, want the world to betray them. What you would do here is simply ask the child to speak to him alone. I mean, of course, after establishing that this is a safe area, that I'm not actually going to kill you. I mean, of course, it could be very intimidating. I mean, a person that is wearing a big, big coat with glasses, probably. Hopefully, not dyed hair or curly hair like mine. Because, come on, who would take a person like me seriously if you're in a clinic? Okay? You, of course, do not want to intimidate him. You can speak of childlike things like the kid's favorite video game, let's say, or what he likes to do in school, what his favorite subject is. All of these very, very, I mean, easily understood strategies psychologists must be aware of. But back to the authoritarian thing. You can simply ask the parents themselves, well, to explain what's going on to the child, because often they are angry. Of course, the parents themselves are authoritarians, but they still brought the child to therapy, so that means that they have some sort of empathy. They might be able to convince the child of what's going on. Of course, the child isn't aware of anything outside that circle or outside that, circle. Of course, also when I said that the child himself is silent, what do we talk about here? We talk about the mightability, is that a word? The chance that the child is actually simply, well, depressed. He has a depressive disorder. Also, when he's silent, it might be selective mutism, the one that we spoke of a couple of, well, in my last midterm videos. Let's just try to retrieve that piece of info. What is selective mutism? It is when a child simply, well, chooses when to speak and when to be silent. As in, he speaks in familiar places. He does not speak in unfamiliar social situations. Of course, this often is simply social anxiety. It's comorbid. This is the word that we like to use when we simply don't know what's going on. Could be a psychotic or an obsessive compulsive disorder, like dermatillomania or trichotillomania. You can actually connect them here because they are compulsive, right? Also, something to very watch out for. I mean, it's very easy to spot mutism with posturing, as in catatonia. In such instances, standard assessment formats such as Kirby's method for examination of, well, uncooperative patients. What is Kirby's method? It is a structured approach that is well designed literally for only uncooperative patients. What do we do here? Well, I won't go too much into it. That would be for your master's degree. Well, but for the sake of learning and curiosity, because we are very passionate and loving of our science, it compromises 8 essential components. No, I won't go through them. But it basically is like just your physiological testing. And it's of course structural, it's your physiological testing. Let's see if you will dilate your pupils when I do this. Let's see. Well, stuff like that, right? It's just physiological. Let's just also take a breather for a second. Why do people refuse to continue certain habits, certain hobbies, certain passionate paths, goals in general? Through 5 causes and reasons. The 5 F's: fatigue, failure, fear, function, or frustration. I mean, if I asked myself, why do people stop coming back to the clinic, I would say failure. I mean, it's very obvious, right? You have to actually let them be aware of that healing basically isn't a day to the next day thing. I mean, Rome itself wasn't built in a day, was it? You have to go through the entire healing process. So we know now how to deal with children in general. Not only that, but the silent child. What about those of the disruptive behaviors? Those of the delinquents, naughty, substance abusing kids? Well, you may think that they're actually very, very difficult, but they're actually not. And let me explain even more. First of all, you want to establish a common ground. Often you see these children very, very defensive and aggressive in the way that they speak to anyone that's trying to help them, mainly because, well, they've been crossed before. You wouldn't appear artificial. Like the approach that we talked about earlier, I guess gain the approval of the child that you know about celebrities or that you know about video games. You simply want to establish common ground, gain trust, build rapport, just simply be genuine in your interest in the child. Literally actually tell him, bro, help me understand you. Help me understand your interests. Because hey, it might be useful to the intervention treatment. I am in your team. I'm not against you. Just get that through your pessimistic head. Now, who said that psychology is simply just memorizing? I mean, we're trying to understand also, but really no. Prepare your sleep-deprived brain, okay? So, well, why exactly? Because I'm going to go through very, very weird-sounding terminologies. First of all, in fine motor, grasping, literally grasping. We have 3 terms. We have bidexterous, we have mono, and we have the pincer hold. Pincer. By, you're holding an object like, oh my god, I don't have anything with me. I have a mouse. Yes, I have a mouse. You're holding an object with both hands. Look. Okay? I am not yet decided if I like the left or right hand. I am still 3 months old. In mono though, I start holding stuff with one hand. Why is that? Well, I'm starting to develop my right-handed domination approach or my left-handed, my southpaw fighting style. Pincer, grasp, I mean, come on. It's like pincer being like this. You're holding stuff like this with your thumb and your index finger, like that. This happens in the 9-month period. That says, by the way, the development of the red nucleus in the membrane. Okay, just say that for the sake of our exams. Gross motor, on the other hand, gross motor is basically the use of more and more muscles instead of using very, I guess, 1. Gross motor, posterior precentral gyrus, immediately anterior to the central sulcus. I have this picture of the brain right there that I haven't really read in a while, so that's why I'm reading from the screen. So in the same period of the mono, that is 6 months, we are transferring objects. Like, let's transferring objects from hand to hand. I mean, we are able to use our mono, right? And that's why it is possible. Also, sitting in 6 months, of course, without support, right? Standing, hopefully, before the 1 year birthday. Now, also perirenal cortex, peri meaning just near, renal meaning nose, being nose, right? What does that say? It says immediately that is located in the medial temporal lobe. My God, I hate April, man. There are flies and the weather is incredibly bad. Also, responsible for object recognition. That is what the temporal lobe does. I also put up this image for, I guess, informative sakes. I might read it again, but I most certainly will not put myself through the exertion of explaining this stuff. Please. So, informational gathering. I'm going to present a case and I want you to point out the behavior, the context, the experience, the emotional response, and the behavior again. I mean, it's not like I already gave it away because I did read them out in order, respectfully, but hey, let's just do it anyway, alright? A 12-year-old boy was rushed into the emergency room, suffering from hypothermia. His blood pressure also was skyrocketing. His heartbeats, arrhythmia. What? You know, this case presenting thing is a matter of actual medicine students. Why are we presenting it this way? Again, let's just do it anyway, because exams are upcoming. A 12-year-old Saudi boy was brought by his parents with complaints of hitting his siblings over random play. That's what the parents thought at the time. Okay? So try to think of the behavior, context, and emotional response. Okay? Let's just re-saying it. Also, all this behavior happened over the past 6 months. It was learned that at school, his classmates were bullying him over reasons that later were found out by his parents were because he was obese. And the boy growing up, and the boy learning the only way to deal with this problem is while being angry and shouting and hitting. We later saw him fighting with his sisters, actually, over toys again, right? And basically, the only way that he would get what he wants is by hitting. I'm sure you got all of them right. The hitting is the actual behavior. The context was school, as in the reason of, right? And, well, the experience itself was bullying. The emotional response was extreme anger. And again, behavior displayed itself when he was fighting with his sisters for the second time. I'm still yet to actually understand if this child is of the delinquent and difficult kids category or not. I've spoken to his parents and I've gathered all this info that I have just talked about earlier, right? So, what can I do now? I can speak to the child himself alone, of course under specific circumstances, but in this very prime example, yes, we actually will try speaking to the child. Mainly why? Well, after the story that I have just told, the child didn't actually tell his parents about his issues. What does that say? It actually gives me some sort of incentive. Maybe, just maybe, the child has some sort of discord or some sort of conflict with his parents. That maybe also that they have been abusing him before. Of course, this is just the egregious example of, right? So hey parents, if you do not work with your child, even if he is mentally retarded, I can use that word because my channel is based on psychology. You must, as a parent, pay very good attention to what the child's perception of you is, if he likes you or not. You have to talk about it. If not talk about it, then please figure it out. Because, well, media influences are a thing. They try to cause chicanery in between. Next up, genogram. It is best understood by the Gregor Mendel genetic discovery of I think Lyme that he used. What is it? A genogram is a visual representation of a person's family history, or just personally, or just family tree, right? It helps us identify disorders that might have caused the disorder that you have right now. Like, for example, if my grandfather was alcoholic, my mother and father are not, then I'm still an alcoholic. Of course, with that reasoning, there comes lots of criticism and disadvantages. It's like it doesn't cover the dynamics in the home and the wider family. It doesn't give you a actual pinpointing reason, of course. It's like if I were to ask why am I mentally ill, you would say, hey, just take it with a grain of salt. You might be a victim of bad genetics. But also, guess what? Going back to the words of physiology that I spoke of earlier, it's like who sees the patient first? Is it the psychologist, or is it the, let's say, pediatrician or neurologist? Well, these two actually, they may be consulted first because we need to cut out the plain paper-like reason, the boring reasons, right? Because, well, if we actually did figure out that it might be a neurological disorder, well, we wouldn't really waste that much money on therapy, would we? A simple screening test would do. So say that the youngster has just left the neurologist department or consultation. We need to understand the family itself now. The family needs to understand why exactly are we taking the kid from the neurology section to the actual clinical psychology section. You know, questions like, hey, who has referred the child? Why did he do it? What is it that he saw? Why did they refer the why now? Why let's say 1 week after the consultation of the neurologist? Why 1 month after? Hey, it might not actually be that serious. Or it might be. See? So just to reiterate it again, why is it that we're asking about history in the first place? Why is it that we're talking about family history? About background and context of presentation. Why is it that we actually do need to care about the socio-economical status of the patient? Why is it that we need to know the presenting behavioral and emotional problems? Well, that's one of the reasons, right? We actually need to know what are the other factors on the affected, on the affected, yeah. Also, it all ties around the same idea, basically, that we're trying to disqualify some possible reasons for the child's misbehavior. The mental status examination, or MSE, does that, to be specific. Well, what does it do? It tests, well, on observable features, by the way, observable, like physical appearance, manner of relating to others, as in, well, social stuff, like eye contact, for example. You can most likely catch autism very early, like that, or a type of autism. I've done this a million times. Okay, so I'm sorry for the noise in the background. It is April right now, so I am heating up, unfortunately. Also mood, of course, speech, psychomotor activity, and why not thinking, like form of thinking. Like, let's say, overvalued ideas. This is fixed by CBT, or depressed cognitions, like suicidal ideas.